What's up, my miners of intelligence and consciousness? I'm Rick Brooks, and this is Rick's Mind. Today with me, I have guest J.D. Roth, who is the founder of the website Get Rich Slowly. What's going on, J.D.?
Not much. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime. So I think the best place to start is to tell people what is this website. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but also the story behind why you decided to create this.
Sure. So, boy, there's so much that goes into it. I'm just trying to figure out where to start. I guess the first thing to know is I grew up in a relatively poor family here in rural Oregon. And, my family didn't have a lot of money, so my parents didn't know how to manage money. And so growing up, they weren't able to model good financial behaviors. And I saw the situation that my parents were in, and I knew that I didn't want to grow up and live in a trailer house. I didn't want to grow up and worry about where the next meal was coming from. So I thought my only escape was college. And so I worked hard to get into college, graduated from college without any school debt, but I had the beginning of a credit card habit. This is I graduated in 1991. So that's a long time ago. I know that. 30 plus years ago.
No, 31.
Just had my 30th reunion that was delayed because of COVID. But I started with the beginning of credit card debt. And then after I graduated, I just got further and further into debt because I didn't know how to manage money. And eventually, in 2004, a couple of friends gave me books. And they said, J.D., we can see you're struggling with money. Here are some books we think you should read. One of those books was Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. And I know that in the modern world, Dave Ramsey, a lot of people don't like him, but he was awesome for me, man. He helped me figure out how to get out of debt. The other book that I read was a book called Your Money or Your Life by Joe Dominguez and Vicki Robin. And it was a fantastic book. First published back in, 92, 93, 94, something like that. And it was one of the first books that talked about financial independence, which is financial independence is this huge buzzword now, right? It's all about early retirement and having enough money to do what you want. But back then it was a pretty novel concept. So 2004, I'm deep in debt. My then wife and I had just purchased a new house. And that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. It was just the mortgage payments and everything. It was just too much. And so I had been blogging on the internet since before blog was even a word. I started blogging in 1997. And I decided, you know what? Maybe I'll start a blog about personal finance. I thought it'd be the first personal finance blog on the internet. Well, I didn't realize there were already dozens of blogs about money. And so I started a site called Get Rich Slowly, getrichslowly.org. And my concept was I wanted to read everything I could about money, share what I learned. I process my thoughts through writing. I've always been a writer ever since I was a little kid. And so I thought, okay, I'll read everything I can, write about it, and maybe that'll help me get out of debt. Maybe it'll help some other people too. And if I'm lucky, maybe I can make a few extra bucks on the side from this website just, to kind of help pay off my debt. And then I started the site on April 15th, 2006. And I was very fortunate that within 3 years, I had built an enormous following with the site. And it was making big bucks every month. So I was able to sell it. And but I had already paid off my debt at that point. But selling it allowed me to achieve the financial freedom that I'd always dreamed about. So the irony is, Rick, I had this site called Get Rich Slowly, and it allowed me to get rich quickly. Not anything I had ever planned for, not anything I had ever intended, just pure good luck, being in the right place at the right time. And then, so I sold the site in 2009. And then in 2017, I managed to buy the site back. For much less than I paid. But so even to this day, 16 years after starting the site, I am writing at Get Rich Slowly, trying to help people figure out how to manage their money.
Wow, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. So why did you decide to buy the site back? Like, did the people that purchased it from you, did they just run it to the ground?
I wouldn't say they ran it into the ground, but when they bought it from me, so one thing to understand is I've always been very nervous and reluctant to do what they call monetize a site. I don't want to pitch credit cards. I got into trouble myself with credit card and credit card debt. So why would I encourage other people to use credit cards?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in 2022, being 53 years old, I recognize, okay, credit cards aren't necessarily evil. They're just a tool. They're kind of like a chainsaw. You know, a chainsaw is a powerful tool, but if you use it wrong, you're going to cut off your foot.
Yep.
Well, credit cards are the same way. And but I still am reluctant to pitch credit cards to people. The people who bought the site from me, they were not reluctant to pitch credit cards to people. So when they bought the site from me, they were able to turn around and do all sorts of things with the site that generated a lot of revenue. But eventually, as time went on, the audience dwindled and the traffic from Google dwindled, I guess. There were few people coming in just naturally, and there were few people reading it regularly. So they're like, Plus, they decided they had bought a bunch of websites and they wanted to sell them. And I got wind of it and said, hey, I'd be happy to take it back. So that's what I did.
Yeah, and since you got it back, have you seen an increase in the traffic heading to the site?
I did initially, but honestly, right around the time COVID hit, things started to fall off. So from a purely financial perspective, repurchasing the site was a poor decision.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not going to ever make that money back. But it's interesting you bring it up because I've just come to the realization recently, and this goes to something that we were talking about before the start of the show, that I don't want to participate in the modern web. The modern web, I think, it's becoming increasingly unusable. I think of sites like Google and Amazon that, to me, these are examples of sites that once they were almost like wonders of the world. You know, you go to Google, search for anything you want. Go to Amazon, buy anything you want. But nowadays, if I go to Amazon and search, for example, for a 32-inch TV, Samsung 32-inch TV, I'll go there and I'll search for that, and I get a page of stuff that's not related to what I'm searching for that Amazon's trying to sell me when all I want is a Samsung 32-inch TV. Or if I go to Google and I search for, I can't think of an example, although it's happened to me 3 times in the past week. I'll search for a term, and it'll give me results that are completely unrelated to the term. And I'm like, man, and often the top results are ads and just other ways for Google to make money. And all this is to say, I don't want to be a part of this ecosystem anymore. So I'm in the middle of remodeling the blog. I've actually got my code over here to the side. I've been working on it, and I want to relaunch the blog and make it much more primitive in a way, I guess, like it would have been back in 2004, 2005, 2006 when I first started blogging. And I want to, I don't want to have any of the bullshit on the site. I don't want to have ads. I don't want to have tracking. I don't want to have any of that. I just want to provide good information to people. And if people come and read it, fine. If they don't, that's fine too.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing, because when I look at the internet, I kind of see like the big 3 or 4. You've got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Reddit. And then I guess Amazon too, right? To purchase things. And so the big 5. And I don't know outside of those websites, like, and if you're listening to this, like, be honest with yourself. How often are you online and not going to those sites? I think there's a lot of great information, but like, if I'm honest with myself, I generally don't go to any other websites. Like, that's where I go. If I go, especially Reddit, I'll go there and then maybe I'll bounce around to different links and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I don't think that any of us really are using the internet to its full potential. I think it would be hard to build a successful blog and website in today's environment. I don't think that it's impossible, because I do think that there's a certain segment of the population that's very interested in like honing in on something without all the distractions. But I think that those people are fewer and far between. But it's definitely an interesting case study. I mean, we have a website, and for all intents and purposes, it does okay. We drive surprisingly a lot of traffic to it, and sometimes people will end up staying on and actually listening to the podcast from the website, which I think is a bit unusual because there's other like, Spotify and Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. But I mean, but there are people out there, and, you never know, there could be another resurgence of people going that direction. Sure. Where it's just truly surfing the web.
Well, to me, it's interesting. I know that I am not the only one who's feeling so frustrated with what the internet has become. There's actually a movement among people, generally people who have been around a long time producing content for the web, who are like, hey, I'm over it. I'm going to go back to what it used to be. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to go back to what it used to be. And I see this more and more. It's just a small movement right now, but it's definitely a movement. There's people there who want to create without all the distractions, without all the baggage. And I'm curious to see where it goes. And I also think you're right that the internet in a way has become siloed, where there's just certain sites that people rely on for information. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when the internet was new, the big companies, let's ignore the internet only companies like Amazon or Google, but the big companies like, say, the New York Times or what have you, like the big media companies, they treated the internet as a sideline, right? It wasn't a thing to focus on or for them to participate in. But now it's their primary source of traffic and audience. Mm-hmm. And so what used to be this, it wasn't really the Wild West. That's the wrong way to describe it. But it used to be this much more egalitarian environment where people like me, people like you could go on and create content and share it with people. More and more we are drowned out because the big people, the big boys from out in the real world, in quotes, have come in and they've like, oh, okay, we're going to be on the internet too. And so now all the traffic goes to them just like it used to through traditional media channels. And I think that's unfortunate. I
do too. I think that's very unfortunate as well, because you're definitely forcing people, for better or for worse, right, into silos. You have the benefit is you have someone. Maybe it's not a benefit. You have people on TikTok that get millions of followers for shaking their ass or doing some stupid dance. Whereas, I mean, TikTok is it's not a good thing because it's a Chinese app. And in China, the thing that's promoted the most is like, allegedly, who knows if this is true, John, pull that up. I think it's like math and science and people doing and engineering concepts or what are really like, that's what the algorithm is looking for. And then in America, it's like stupid dances, right? So that's not necessarily good. It's kind of, so if you want.
Wait, you're saying that on TikTok in China, when people use TikTok in China, they're not looking for stupid dances?
No, they're not.
Is that what you're saying?
No, they're not. They're definitely not.
That's amazing.
It is and John, make sure that I'm not talking on my ass on this, but it is my understanding that like the algorithm that like pushes videos and stuff is really looking for things that are showing STEM items. Like that is what they want their youth to be focused on, not so much the playthings, which is kind of scary, in essence. You're sowing mindlessness over here while your populace is getting expired and stuff.
This goes down a rabbit hole that I've thought about, but
let's go there.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
Oh, but I am. So, dude, hit me with it. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
I wasn't thinking just in relation to TikTok. Again, I'm old. So TikTok, you get to anybody over 50, we're all like, TikTok, man, what is this? This is some weird stuff. Mm-hmm. And but at the same time, it has that egalitarian nature that the early internet had.
John, what were you going to say? About you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I don't know where you're getting your information about Chinese. So the Chinese sister app for TikTok is called Douyin or Douyin, and the top videos are all exactly what you would expect, like cosplaying and dancing and entertainment. Yeah.
All right. Well, I was wrong there, folks. That's why John's here. Damn it. All right. Well, I'm sorry to lie to you.
I want to hire John because I need a personal fact checker to go around and catch my bullshit.
Yeah, I talk out of my ass. That's why he's here. I don't want to lie to the good people. But anyways, I'm sorry. So you were talking about TikTok being an egalitarian system.
Yes. So in many ways, TikTok feels egalitarian, just like the early web did, or the early podcasts, or early whatever. Whenever a new technology comes around, the first people on it, they get to run with it for a couple of years and have fun with it until the big companies come on. And I guarantee you, if it hasn't already, it's going to happen where you've got your Procter & Gamble coming on TikTok. And, well, I know they're just going to sponsor the big influencers. That's probably the easiest way for them to do it. But they're also going to form their own channels, and they'll become big. And then eventually, give it 5 years, that's where people will go.
Yeah,
it's frustrating to me, but it's natural.
I would agree with you. But when we talk about these things, I'm always wondering, like, what is the next social media? Like, what else is out there that I don't know about that I need to be on? Because there's definitely that. We had a guy on here, Lauren Fjord, who went to London. I think it was either London. Yeah, it was London, and he was in the early parkour scene. Knows all the people that are famous. Like, just bought a one-way ticket. Like, there's so many cool things going on in real life and in the virtual space that we don't even know about right now. It drives me nuts. It drives me insane. And like, there's a Web 2.0 that's coming out. I do not know what that is at all. John, maybe you could shed light.
I think it's Web 3.0.
Web 3, but John, what is this?
Web 2.0 was like the internet, like, kind of boom from like 2006 to 2012 maybe. And Web 3 is now the crypto stuff. And I think Jack Dorsey said he's going to do Web 5 or 4 or something. It's all just bullshit.
The future.
Yeah, right. Yeah, who knows? But there's a lot of problems. I do think that there's a lot of valuable information still on websites. I took a swing at a blog, and it's something I need to get back into. I need to get back into writing just because I love to write. And I had some people reading, not nearly as many as I'd want. As a writer, even a podcaster, right? My thought is like, how come I don't have millions of people listening to what this is a long con. This is something that is going to take a long time to build an audience. And even though we've been at this for quite some time, it's still in its infancy. And it's to have it, and it's the ability to have the patience to stick with this basically until I die. Like, I'm never going to give up. I'm just going to keep chatting with interesting, cool people and if nothing happens, then I've learned a lot from all the guests that we've had on, and I'm a much better person for it. So it's a win-win for me.
Exactly. And you said something interesting about, I don't know exactly how you phrased it, but you talked about you don't know what's coming next. And we don't need to know what's coming next. It used to be that I thought, I have to chase whatever the new thing is. I need to have a podcast. I need to have a YouTube channel. And to this day, I have people hounding me to do both. People want me on TikTok. But I've realized, for me, I am a writer. That is how I process my thoughts and feelings. It's what I enjoy doing. I like to write. People enjoy my writing. I am much less enthused about all this other stuff. All this other stuff seems like work. Writing to me seems like play. It just seems natural.
Oh, really?
This other stuff seems like work, and I don't want to pursue it. And, if that means my audience is smaller, so be it. I have a devoted audience that wants to read what I write, and I'm very grateful for that. But even if I didn't, that's another part of my realization, going back to the remodeling Get Rich Slowly to be something more like the early days of the web, is even if I don't have an audience, even if I'm just writing for myself, there's still value in that. And so what I would do, what I would say to you, Rick, is if you enjoy the podcasting, stick with the podcasting, and sure, dabble with this other stuff. But if it seems like work or you don't get it, say, okay, that's fine. I'm going to stick with the podcasting.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. I love, what's kind of your writing process? I'm curious to know.
Well, that's a great question. First of all, it depends. But generally speaking, what happens is I just wrote an article today, so we can talk about that article. So as we're recording this, I don't know what your release schedule is, but as we're recording this, it's the middle of June 2022, and interest rates have been going up. And that means mortgage rates have been going up. And so I got to thinking, I wonder, we just bought our house here in Corvallis, Oregon, last August, and we got a very low interest rate, 2.6%. And I got to thinking, with the interest rates at 6.2%, what would be the difference if we were to buy the house today as opposed to having bought it in August? And so I whipped up a spreadsheet, and then I started just jotting down some notes. I was going to make a Facebook post. That's what I was going to do. Well, the 100-word Facebook post turned into 800 words. I'm like, oh, well, I've got a blog post. And so I just started writing about it. So for me, a lot of my writing comes from my personal experience. I find it very difficult. I'm not a freelance writer. You can't say, hey, J.D., will you write me an article on mortgage rates? That's just not going to work. But if I'm talking about my own life and my experience and what I've learned from it, I could absolutely do that. Or if you and I sit down and have a conversation about your personal finance history or whatever, I can write an article about you and the challenges you face. I can write an article about that. So for me, my writing is story-based. I look for a germ of an idea. I just dump as much out as possible and try to craft that into something that's entertaining and informative. Yeah. That's the general approach. There are other times that I do have to take the more freelance approach where I'm like, oh, I'm writing this article and it's going to be tedious. And those articles end up taking weeks instead of hours.
Yes. Yeah. My process is kind of similar. I used to do this thing when I was on the 75 Hard. I'd do a Sunday sermon and kind of break down what the challenges I had during the week and stuff. And generally, maybe I start that, or maybe I do it the day of, or maybe I start it during the week and keep a log. But if I felt inspired going into it, or really pumped up, or just like the biggest challenge was to actually sit down, and then I would begin writing, and I do not edit anything until I've typed things out. Sometimes it's just a stream of consciousness, and sometimes I'll like go off on a tangent, but I just want to put many words down as I possibly can. And then if it's all trash, I throw it away, but I'll try and save at least something. But it's just a word vomit, because I've found that if I'm too scared or too apprehensive to write, or I start editing things like, oh, that needs to go there, this is spelled wrong, then I might lose that spark. You know what I mean? That little bit of thing. So I try not to do anything if I'm in that flow state. Just keep writing.
And I think I 100% back that. That I think it's a great approach, and that is much of what I do too. I've been doing this long enough now that I know how to edit myself. Usually, I know how to edit myself as I go. But what you're doing is exactly how I did it when I started, and how I do it often now too. It's just get it out there, worry about the editing later. And here's one thing I say, Rick, is I often say that writing is only 20% writing. It's 80% editing. Yeah. And what I mean by that is I do the brain dump, like what you're talking about, just get out there. And then that only takes like 20% of the time. The rest of it, like the article I wrote this morning, I had it written within 45 minutes, I think. Mm-hmm. The other 2 or 3 hours was me just going back over it, moving things around, checking spelling, saying, oh, what kind of images do I want to add? What links do I want to add?
Oh, yeah.
And so on.
That's awesome. it's nice. I don't talk to enough writers on this show, so it's kind of inspiring me to get back in it and just maybe it's been like a year.
Do you enjoy it?
I do enjoy writing. Probably not to that level of writing that I was writing every day, I think for 75 or 100 days or whatever. I think I continued afterwards, but
work.
I really felt good about it. Was just kind of, there's something about throwing something into the endless void of the internet that I enjoy. I really do. Like, especially like, it's a little bit weird, but like when I die, like all of this work that, you know, John and I have done through this podcast, that'll be on the internet forever. So my voice will live on, right? Until there's a giant cataclysmic event that probably takes out the human race. But until that time, it's good. So it's just, you know, and if one person if this podcast, my words on the, you know, my website, if they're able to change or help one person or even help them open their mind a little bit, I'll be happy.
Yeah. I'd say 100% just keep writing when you feel the urge, and just write for yourself too. I mean, so I use a text editor, not a word processor. It's a text editor like you might write code in. And it's very primitive. And I'll sit down. I would say I'm going over to my text editor now to look what I've got. So this is a new computer, as I told you guys, and it says I've got 32 open documents, and nearly all of those 32 open documents are just like brain dumps, like you're talking about, that I've done for myself that will never see the light of day. And in fact, I'll end up deleting them a lot of times. Let's see. Number 23, here's one that I wrote. I can't even tell what it's about, but it's like, this will probably never be published. It's just something I've written down here. And after 3 or 4 months of it being open on my computer, I just close it. And I'm like, okay, it serves its purpose. It allowed me to get my...
Really?
It's like a journal for myself.
So I've got a journal that I have with two of my best buddies. One of them moved across the country, and he's like, let's all start writing. And we've written probably about 1,100 pages together through 3 years of, no, longer than that. It's probably been like 5 years.
Is this like in Google Docs?
This is just in Google Docs. Yes. Yeah. It's just a Google document that we've just been writing in forever. We write, you know, I definitely write in this saying I would probably say like 4 or 5 times a week. Sometimes it's just a little paragraph. Sometimes it's pages. And it's just and it's interesting because you can go back and see yourself change. We have a running document to see the improvements we've made in our lives, like where I was 4 years ago versus where I am now. It's crazy. We date everything. There's, you know, not timestamps, but date stamps. So and you just can follow it. We filled up. We've written so much at the Google Doc that we couldn't save any more information, so we had to start another one. And it's been a wild ride, but I definitely believe in the power of writing. That's definitely helped me, and it's more of an accountability form, right? Like if someone in this form, there's 3 gentlemen, and if you're listening, you want to try this, you need 3 people. You can't do it with just 2. I've tried it with just 2, and then if someone like slacks off, then it's dead. But in my case, with 3 people, there's someone that always holds it down. Even if you get super busy, there's always one person that will start writing. And that person, whether it's me or any of the other, to Scott or Andrew, sometimes we'll pick up the phone and call because, hey man, you have been writing. Like, what's going on? How are you? And you can tell there's a recurring theme in this document. If I'm not writing, then something's going on with me. I'm not happy with how I'm conducting myself, or I'm not happy of the decisions I've made, and I don't want to write anything down. When things are going great in my life, I love to write, but when you need to write the most, that's when you don't. And so sometimes after a phone call from a buddy, I'll go, I'm sorry, like I've been doing this, and this, and you're like, oh man, it's not that bad. I got to write more. I feel better. So I think that's a tool that's definitely helped me, and it's a good support group too.
I love this idea. I've never heard of this. It's a completely new idea, and I think it's terrific. And so what kind of things do you guys end up sharing in this journal?
Everything.
So
it could be a book. Essentially, it's essentially a book. But
when you write, when each of you is writing, are you writing to the other two people? Are you writing to yourself? Are you writing just?
Okay,
I'm trying to imagine how this would work.
So we're writing. We're kind of just writing. It's kind of like a journal. It's just like
it's just to yourself, but you have two more audience members.
Yes, but sometimes it ends up being you write to the other person. Like you might have a sense or two, like, all right, like let's say we're pretty good avid lifters, so we'll talk about like, have you been to the gym, or I've not been going to the gym, or I've been doing this, and then oh, I see that you haven't been, or you're struggling. Well, here's what's worked for me. So you might be able to pitch some advice to your buddy, but you always have a running tally of like what's going on with your friends and whether they're on the path. One of the reoccurring themes is like, there's this path. We've all found that, when we're eating correctly, we're working out, and we're moving forward in life, that we tend to be more happy. And when we're not doing those things, we tend to be depressed. And so if someone's depressed, or whatever, what I'm a big proponent of doing on this form is when things are going really, really well, I will document every single thing that I'm doing, because I might lose this groove that I'm on, so I can refer back to when things were going amazing, be like, holy shit, this is what I was doing. I was doing this, 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 and this. And when I look at my life right now, I'm not doing any of those things. So I might need to bring these things back. I think it's good to document what's going well in your life, as well as what's going, not so good. But I find that through the years of doing this, that my failure to document what was going well really ended up hindering me, because then you have to kind of relearn some of these lessons and it could be something super simple, such as like, I wake up in the morning and I immediately go on a walk. And ever since I've done that, it's just good to write these things down.
I think you're 100% correct in that it is important to document what works. So I'm struggling right now with my fitness. I'm a fat motherfucker. Let's just be honest.
You're not that good, man.
The 10 years ago exactly, I was at my peak fitness. The fittest I had ever been in my life was June 2012. Here we are 10 years later, June 2022, and I'm at the worst shape I've ever been in my life. And I know how it all happened. I'm not going to try to make excuses. It's my own choices and beer. And
yes.
So I wish I had kept a journal back in 2012 saying, here's what I did today. I mean, I have vague memories. I was eating much healthier. I was focusing on protein. I'm addicted to potato chips right now. Let's be honest. Potato chips and beer, they're my best friends. But, that's just going to help you pack on the pounds. And I'm not making it into the gym. I find all sorts of excuses not to make it to the gym. I would love to read a journal from J.D., who is 43 years old, and making it to the gym every day and eating right and just get into my own mind. So I guess what you're doing or what you're saying is 100% correct. Document not just the stuff that's not going well, but document the stuff that's working. I love this concept.
Because you really find yourself. So, all right. This is great. We're just turning this into a therapy session. Right on. All right.
That's right.
So this is my favorite thing, because I struggle with this. So right now I'm in the midst of a challenge. I found in my life that I love challenges. I've done multiple, whole 30, 75 hard, 92 hard, you name it, I've done it. I love these things. That's when I'm my happiest, when I'm chasing something. The other thing that really upsets me when I feel like I'm at my best is I'm not drinking. I love beer. I love drinking. It's I love it. But for whatever reason, I just feel like it's a giant hindrance in my life. And so what I did this year, is I'm doing like I made this up. It's a 355. It was a 360, but I figured I needed a little bit more leeway because I want to have some drinks, right? So 10 times a year I'm allowed to drink.
Oh, interesting.
I'm doing 355, so I get 10 mulligans. Now,
yeah.
Now, automatically, the first 3-4 months of this project, I'm not drinking. I'm just not. I don't need it. It's just not. It's not an option. But as life happens, and certain things happen, there might be times for celebratory drinks. So I'm not completely eliminating alcohol, but I'm for the most part, because I just, after doing so many, like the past 2 years, I think I took a total of almost like 200 days off of booze, and I felt great. I was in amazing shape. I was doing all sorts of things, and then I kind of got back on the sauce. And the thing about drinking that I found is it's so easy to do. Hey, buddy, let's go meet for a beer. Oh, we're going to go do this. Let's grab a drink, or let's grab a 6-pack and, let's go hiking, and then we'll get to the top and we'll drink a beer. It just really, let's go out to eat. Everything, especially in the Pacific Northwest, beer is very much a part of our culture. And I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love all the microbrews. The problem is they're not healthy. They make me fat. And the other thing is I honestly do feel like it takes, whether it's self-imposed, I can't decide, but it takes some kind of toll on my mind, and it makes me not feel like I'm being my best self. So that's what led to
100%.
What's led to me being like, all right, 355 days of not boozing at all, just to see what it's like.
For me, so I grew up Mormon, no alcohol at all. So I didn't have alcohol until I got to college. And even then I didn't drink very much. And it wasn't until I was 30 years old that I began to have alcohol on a regular basis, by which maybe I had it 10 times a year. Mm-hmm. But then about a decade ago, when I was at my peak fitness, a decade ago, I had not had I had never sat down and drank beer because I thought it tasted horrible. Mm-hmm. I would drink mixed drinks and wine. So beer has been my downfall. I learned to drink it about a decade ago, and I love the stuff. It's delicious. And yeah, but what I found is, I agree with you, Rick. It's not just the physical effects, which are absolutely there, but it's the mental effects of when I am drinking on a consistent basis. I wake up in the morning and I'm cloudy and muggy, and I know that I'm not operating at my peak capacity. And yet I get to the afternoon and I'm like, oh, I just feel so shitty. I'm just going to have some more beer. That'll make me feel better. And so we're going to go all full nerd here. Let's go full nerd. In January 1st, 2021, I realized, you know what? Okay, first of all, during COVID, from the end of July 2020 to the end of October, so about 4 months, 3 months, I didn't have a drop of alcohol. And I felt amazing. I felt great physically, mentally, emotionally. It was fantastic. Then I made a mistake on Halloween weekend. I was like, I'll have a few drinks. And then it was just right down the hole where I was drinking too much. And so beginning of January 2021, I decided I was going to document every single time I used alcohol or pot, because in Oregon, pot is illegal. Yeah. And so I started documenting both of those. And my goal for 2021 was, I don't want to change my behavior during the year of 2021. I just want to document everything that I do. Let's be completely honest. And so I have a spreadsheet here that shows every time, every drink, every hit of pot I had. And then I came into 2022 and I said, okay, I have the information for 2021. Now let's try to make some adjustments. Mm-hmm. And I haven't tried to go cold turkey. Instead, what I try to do is just say, okay, can I get down to an average of only one drink a day? So it'd be like 365 drinks. Mm-hmm. Because last year, I can tell you, in 2021, I had 1,033 drinks.
I love it.
That's an average of almost 3 per day. And so far this year, I'm doing great. And I'm not down at 1, but I'm almost half of what I was drinking last year. So
we have very similar minds. This is actually weird. I don't think it's very odd to me, because I don't think I've met anyone that was as obsessive with tracking your well, you do know this. Behavior is fucking everything. It's 100. If you can change your behaviors, you can really conquer a lot in your life. Like if you can change your spending behavior, your exercise. I mean, my question is to you, how serious are you about like wanting to get back into the gym? And because I'm going to tell you this from personal experience, the hardest thing is just showing up. That's the first, like actually setting foot into a gym after you've been away for a long time. I do not know what it is, but it is so hard to take that initial first step. But it's so necessary.
That it's hard.
Well, yeah, you can put it off. That's what scares me the most is you can put it off for a long time.
In right around Valentine's Day this year, middle of February, I signed up for the local gym here in Corvallis. And I went in 4 or 5 times in the first week. And then my cousin, and this is actually how Rik and I met, my cousin, his health declined sharply. He had cancer. And so I shifted from focusing on my own health to helping my cousin. And I spent 2 months with my cousin at the end of his life and didn't go to the gym once during that time. I went 4 or 5 times, then got distracted. Then I came home end of April, beginning of May, and I was at all the positive momentum, all the enthusiasm. I haven't, it's been 6 weeks now since I've done helping my cousin, and I haven't been to the gym once. I just keep making excuses. Can
you shift your thinking on this a little bit? Instead of like, I'm going to go and get a full workout, like I think maybe where you need to begin is just showing up for 15 minutes, doing a half-ass workout and then leaving and then showing up for 15 minutes again. So then you build the habit of actually showing up to the gym once, because this is a mistake that I've made billions of times, and hopefully I figured it out. But my problem is I go balls deep. Like I get obsessed and I go and I scale. I start out way too intense when the reality is it's always easy to scale up, but what's not easy is keeping an insane amount of intensity. So start out really low intense and then scale your way up to being a psychopath. So like on the
It's like 500 kettlebell swings in a day.
Oh, okay. You have been reading my.
Yes.
Yeah. That was awesome. Yeah. Definitely do that challenge again. But but the thing is, I'm not in that mindset right now. Like that Rik, that hardcore, insane workout guy, he's not around right now. This is I'm just beginning this journey of this 355 hard. So I'm in a very slow scaling up process of like, what I'm really focused on is my diet and going to jujitsu and then also going to the gym. Now, as time goes on and I start getting a little bit more confidence in all of these areas and my body gets used to going in the gym and the wear and tear, then I'm definitely going to do that challenge again, and we'll scale up the intensities, up the intensity of the activities that I do. But right now, that guy's dead for all intents and purposes. He's not around for the count. But yeah.
This gets into some interesting concepts of like continuity of self, but we won't go there just yet. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. When I look back at, like I said, 10 years ago, I was in the best shape of my life. I was going to a CrossFit gym. May of 2012, I went every single day that the gym was open. It wasn't open on Sundays, but I went so I was going 6 days a week.
Oh, wow.
And I was at peak fitness. And I'm a small guy, so I was never lifting as much as the big guys were, but I was lifting the heaviest weights I've ever lifted in my life. And so you're right. I need to get over the idea that I'm going to go back to the gym and do that now. What I need to do is just go to the gym, just show up, sit on the recumbent bicycle with my Kindle or something, pedal for 15 minutes and say, you know what? I made it to the gym.
That's it.
And I know from myself that it will build from there. It's just I got to get the momentum going. I got to start.
Yes.
And the problem is start.
Because having a brain, we have very similar brains. Having a brain like ours, it's a blessing and a curse, because you're like, you understand that you are capable of getting back to that position. but it's so easy.
And you understand that you're making excuses. You understand that you're the one responsible. Yeah,
you do. You understand you're making excuses, but you're also like, I'll get back. I know I'll get back. I'm just not going to do it now. And it's totally fine. I'm going to hang out with my friends. And then like maybe next week, but and then you'll eventually you'll arrive to a situation where you'll have a come to Jesus talk with yourself. And you'll be like, okay, like no more. I can't do this. Because time is also something that freaks me out because it sneaks up on you and it really just passes by so quickly. It's actually
wait until you're 53 years old and you're like, holy shit, what happened?
Where did it all go? I'm 31 now. And it feels like I'm not even that old. So I hate, but if you're in your 30s and you say you're old, go fuck yourself. I'm not that old. I'm still very much a young man, but it doesn't feel that long ago. In 10 years, I was 21. Just like that those days feel like yesterday. And it's like I'm 9 years away from 40. It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
So I know it's Rik's mind, but this could very much be J.D.'s mind too, because it does sound like we have similar thought processes. Maybe we overthink things too much.
Oh, most definitely. Most of certain things. I definitely. I'm a thinker. I am definitely. So wait, you said you were a Mormon. I need to go back to that. Like, how did you get out?
Well, that's a complicated question. So, my father grew up Mennonite. My mother grew up Mormon. And for those who don't know, Mennonite, they're not Amish, but Mennonite and Amish are related. So Mennonites would be like cousins of Amish. Mm-hmm. They're not as anti-technology generally, but, kind of conservative like that.
Bonnet and dress wearing people.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, but they don't ride buggies. They might drive trucks.
They don't ride buggies.
There we go.
That's right. And so my parents met. My father converted to Mormonism, had 3 kids, grew up. We raised us in the Mormon church. But they had some real issues with it right about the time I got into high school. And I was struggling too. I struggled with some of my faith. So we ended up going back to my father's church, the Mennonite church that he grew up in. And then I went off to college. I went off to college. I thought I was going to be a religion major, actually. Mm-hmm. I wanted to grow up. I wanted to be a pastor. I wanted to preach. But I am now an agnostic is where I've come to. I've gone through all this stuff and everything I've read, and I still read extensively about religion. It's not like I've just stopped reading about religion, but I extensively read about religion and all sorts of things. And I just can't buy into organized religion right now. And I didn't mean to take it in that direction, but there we go.
I think that's fair. Organized religion, anything that people touch kind of turns to trash. And my parents are pretty religious, and one of the things I was trying to explain to them at one point, when I was like, I'm definitely agnostic as well, I was like, it's like we went to a movie and you saw one movie that you loved, and I saw a movie and I just didn't like it. Like, you loved it, but like, no matter what you say to me, like, I don't get it. I also, like, my biggest issue is I have a tough time buying into heaven for whatever reason that is. I just think the one thing we've always been told is if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So I have a real tough time with heaven. I don't even know if the human mind could function without struggle or chaos. Like, it's just sold, it's going to be awesome. And I was like, I don't know. I kind of feel like when you die, it's just completely black and you float off into the deep abyss of nothingness. And the whole notion of God is just an evolutionary trick designed to help you cope with the idea that that there is nothing. That like there's nothing after you die, and that when you are dying, your brain releases DMT, and some person that was able to come back is like, no, I saw the afterlife, but really, it's just your brain shutting down. I don't know. I could go off on this forever, but
I could too, but we'll spare your listeners.
Exactly, we will.
For me, one of the tough things for me is the fact that you've got, not only do you have hundreds of different religions out there in the world, all of which think they are right, all of which truly believe it. But within each of those religions, you have different sects. So you have different sects of Mormonism, you have different sects of Mennonitism, different sects of Catholicism, and each one of those sects believes they're right. And then within those sects, you have different congregations, and each congregation believes that they're right. And within the congregations, you have the members, and each member believes something different from the member sitting next to them, and they each think they're right. Well, they can't all be right.
I think religion also, a lot of it says the same things. But funny enough, I think that a giant problem that we have today is a lack of religion. I think a lot of I think the gods have changed. I think the gods are now politics. I think people put their faith in their religion is CNN and Fox News and the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And then, I think, or their identities or whatever. I think that's how people get their, religious fix. I think that because for whatever reason, I think that there is something within the human mind that needs a higher power or something, something, because I've found, like, again, being agnostic, sometimes if I find myself in a tough time or whatever, I feel I might say a prayer to whatever. And that helps me. That makes me feel, it's almost like a form of meditation. I very rarely do this. And the last time I did it, I was like, man, I got to do this more often. But saying, just a prayer to whatever, hey, whatever's out there, I need some help. That helped me immensely. And I thought that was really bizarre.
Well, I went through a similar experience once last November. I had this amazing, probably the best day of my life. And at the end of the day, I said what amounted to, I just thanked the universe. I just put it out there. And it was essentially a prayer is what it was. And it's the same exact thing. Yeah, and I found it helpful too.
I think it's important to do those things. I think it's important to worship whatever it is. I think that those things are very fundamentally human for whatever reason. So I'm definitely not anti-religion in any case of the word. In fact, there's a part of me that wishes more people were religious. I feel like maybe, I don't know. It's kind of a crazy theory, but I feel like at some point our society is more caring than it's ever been, but also more fearful of each other than we ever have. So we have all this care.
Well, and part of that is the omnipresent news media in all forms wants to give you only the negative stories. So that's part of it. That's why we're fearful.
Yeah, 100%. Which is why I don't watch the news. I have no idea what's going on. I have John for that. That's it. I don't know. He just tells me all the bad news and some of the good things. I did want to talk to you. Are you familiar with the Dodd-Frank Act?
No, but real quick before we get off the religion stuff, I wanted to say that the one thing that I think everyone, regardless of their religion or lack of religion, regardless of their political affiliation, if people would just be kind to each other. I'm a huge believer in the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I feel like we've gotten so far away from that. When I was growing up in the Mormon church, we were taught that over and over again in Sunday school. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And then when I went to the Mennonite church, we didn't hear it as often, maybe because I was not as young, but I just feel like so much in our society nowadays, we forget that. And we treat other people, we find out so-and-so believes something and we think, oh, they must be a jerk. They must be an asshole because they believe this one thing. We never give people the benefit of the doubt. And I just wish more and more people would be kind to each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now
you can ask me the Dodd-Frank Act.
Do you know about the Dodd-Frank Act by chance?
Not by name.
Okay. So essentially, and John, please, I'm 0 for 1 today. Let's hope that I get that. Let's hope I don't butcher this. Essentially, I believe I talked to a podcast guest, and essentially this allows the banks to take possession of your money. So once you go deposit, let's say you go to a bank, you make a deposit, they take your money, and it's actually you're transferring ownership. Meaning the reason they pass this is they don't want federal government doesn't want to bail out banks. I feel like I'm butchering this, John. I need your help. And this allows them to not give you your money back if there's a run on banks in the future. So that's something I wanted to bring up. And how bad? Let me know how bad I butchered that, John.
I am trying to read on it to get the exact things, but you seem about in the ballpark.
Cool.
So
looking at it, I Googled it naturally while you were talking.
Nice.
And I see that it came out of the Great Recession and the financial crisis of 2008.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That seems. I don't think the government would have passed something that had that as its intention. It may have been an unintended side
I'm pretty
effect.
sure it was unintended because the majority of it had to do with TARP and the loans that were given to all of the companies that went bankrupt from overspending and things. And
I know that FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance, what's the C? Commission? I don't remember what it is. That still exists. So your money is still protected in the banks. Short answer is I don't know anything about the Dodd-Frank Act. Can't comment.
Hey, this is no worries about that. But that might be something. That might be something you want to look into. You definitely.
I'll leave it open and I'll read about it.
Definitely could.
It also had something to do because Glass-Steagall was the act that it replaced, and Glass-Steagall was placing limits on investment banking and personal banking, and like the consumerization of banking, and part of Dodd-Frank removed that as well. So I believe that was like what you're talking about, Rick, I think was like probably like either the actual reason underneath or just an unintended consequence.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And something, Rick, I say that, I often say that I'm an accidental personal finance expert,
Mm-hmm.
which means I have no formal training in accounting. I'm not a certified financial planner. I learned what I learned from the School of Hard Knocks, and I focus very much on the personal and personal finance. So I'm here to help individuals figure out money. I don't pay much attention to the larger political or economic issues. I mean, obviously, I'm going to be exposed to some of it, and there are a lot of people who would level criticism at me, probably justifiable criticism, that I need to know this stuff in order to be able to give advice and information. But my response to that always is there are a lot of people who are already paying attention to the politics and to the economics, and that's not something I'm interested in. There are other people watching that and providing commentary on it. For me, what I want to focus on is helping the individuals say, okay, this is the system. Here within the system is how we can do the best things with our money.
Absolutely. John, go ahead.
So another part of Glass-Steagall was establishing the FDIC. Where did I have it? The best way that I could put it is that so Glass-Steagall limited the ability for commercial banks that were business lending to be speculative investment banks. And investment banks were a whole separate category. Dodd-Frank essentially removed that and commercialized all banks.
I have to look into that. I'm not 100%. I'd have to probably read that again. I need to read this whole thing. So I just wanted to. Well, we're running out of time, but I do want to ask you one thing. And this is a kind of very broad. What do you think is the most important thing for someone that is, struggling with debt or trying to get ahead? What is a few things that you would like to tell people?
I'm going to go with just one, because all personal finance, all money management really boils down to one essential fact or skill or equation. And that is your personal wealth. The money you have is the difference between what you earn and what you spend. I know this sounds really basic, but once you understand that this one equation, this one fact, is the thing that drives everything about your financial life, if you can accept this and act on this fact that your personal wealth is the difference between what you earn and what you spend, from there, you can make all sorts of changes to your life. Now, when I say the difference between what you earn and what you spend, I know there are a lot of people, especially right now, who are struggling with both the spending and the earning. And I get that different people are in different circumstances. Different people have been dealt different hands in life. I was raised poor, but poor by the standards of a white guy in rural Oregon, which might be might be very different than, say, a black woman growing up in rural Mississippi. That's a different kind of poverty, right? And I acknowledge that. So I understand that I've got some privilege. All the same, regardless of what your starting circumstances are, it is up to you to make the most of the hand you've been dealt. So if you want to build your personal wealth, you've got two levers you can pull. You can pull the earning lever, or you can pull the saving lever. And depending on where you are, you're going to have better results pulling one lever or the other. So let's say you don't make a lot of money. Say you have an income of $20,000 a year or $30,000 a year. Well, there's probably not much you can do to reduce your spending if you're only earning $20,000 a year, right? Because your spending's already very, very low. If you're in that circumstance, you've got to pull that earning lever and figure out some way to increase your earning ability. And that's going to be different for each individual. A lot of times, the correct answer is to seek more education. Studies show that the single greatest factor in determining your earning power is how educated you are. It matters more than race, it matters more than gender, it matters more than anything. It's how educated you are. So if you want to earn more, generally speaking, your best bet is to seek greater education. But there are other things you can do too, like move or switch careers, whatever. On the other hand, if you're, say, a dentist, you're already earning a high income and you're struggling to get by with your high income, well, obviously, pulling the earning lever, that's not going to, you're not going to be able to do that, or it's not where you need to approach things. You need to take a look at your spending, right? And figure out what you can do to decrease your spending if you've got a high income. The key here is the fundamental skill to develop in personal finance is to increase that gap between earning and spending so that it's as wide as possible. And then once you've got that gap increased, take that margin, which is savings essentially. It's just money you put in the bank or invest in the stock market. And the third lever that I say there's only two, earning and spending. There's also a third, and that's the return that you earn on your investments. And so that's it, though. Those are the fundamental skills. And I'm making it sound like super easy and super basic, but that's just to save time.
Yep.
I've been writing for 16 years on the subject, and there's still more to write about just on these three particular things. Increase the gap between earning and spending, invest it wisely.
Absolutely. Well, where can people learn more about this?
Well, they can come on over to getrichslowly.org, not .com, getrichslowly.org, where I can't say that I write every day. I can't even say that I write every week, but regularly I'm writing about topics related to personal finance. And if you've listened to this far into the podcast, you've got a sense of how my mind works. I try to approach things from a broad perspective. I try not to be judgmental of anyone. I try to accept or look at all political ideas, try not to espouse my own. And I really try to approach money and life from a psychological perspective, just trying to figure out what can I do to help people master the mental game of wealth.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, JD, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Rick.
And we'll have you back, man. It was a pleasure. It was great talking to you. All right, folks. Please give us 5 stars on iTunes if you think we're worthy. And be sure to like and subscribe below, right down there. Helps the show grow. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week.